I'm a Rubik's Cube expert.
Are you?
Definitely
Not me.
Oh.
I can only do one side.
No, not even remotely close.
I can't even do that.
Did
you watch that documentary on Netflix? It's a short one.
The reason it's on my mind is it's a big front page story in the Record about Rubik's Cube and University of Waterloo or something. Yeah.
Oh.
No, in the 80s, you had stickers you could just peel off.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah. I used to bust them apart and then put it back together.
Yeah.
You know, if you put a butter knife in, you could bust it apart, and that's my level of smarts. Take it apart and fix it.
Yeah,
that's where Sarah goes.
Yeah, it sounds.
But no,
like
Speed Cubers. That's the documentary.
Oh,
yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I've got a lot of students who are into that. It's wild.
It's so wild.
Like they can they're in for it.
Okay, so let's try this. Welcome to Bond Park. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Marshall.
And I'm Conan Stark.
Welcome to Bond Park.
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 We'll go with that.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for coming, Conan Stark. We're so excited to talk to you.
Well, thanks for having me.
We met, we've known of each other, right? As we all do in this community. It's a small town. My parents taught me, be good to people because it's a small town and everyone knows each other. So we first met at the time it was called KW Arts Awards, but now it's the Arts Awards Waterloo region, right?
That's right, yeah.
And I think it was you who said, hey, I'm Conan, or was it us? I forget.
I don't recall.
Was it Bangishimo?
It could happen. Bangishimo probably made the introduction, being very social.
Yes.
Very positive.
Oh my gosh. Something I'm learning with the podcast, as Marshall knows, and we talk about a lot. I will glide through this city how?
With big sunglasses and a hoodie on, looking very generic, I guess. Anonymous.
No. That's, generic. I say I could blend in. I look like any other Waterloo mom. Yeah. Hoodie on, sunglasses on, headphones on.
Yeah.
Off I go. And Marshall is very recognizable in the community, and you're also approachable because it's not head down and you've got your head up. Anyway, so that's a little fun Bond Park.
Also, I was reminded this weekend that Conan is such an awesome name. I was looking through my old comic books and came upon my Conan the Barbarian comics, and the way that word looks, Conan the Barbarian.
So strong, yeah.
No, I'm a big comic book collector.
Are you?
Yeah. I mean, hard not to be when you're Conan. Drawn to those comics as a kid.
Conan Stark. That's not a bad name to have grown up with.
This is, I have name envy, right? When we interviewed Dan Schramm, I was like, that's a good handle. He's like, what's your name? And I told him, he's like, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, the name is done me well. There was a time where I was a little bit shy of it because you get attention for it, right? You can't you can't be unassuming and
Well, you're already halfway to being a celebrity when you have that name, right? Like,
well, yeah, a lot of people, is that your real name? At the comic book shop, I have a bin, as you can. You have to go to a pull bin where you put your favorite comics. Mm-hmm. And I have my name down. It's Conan Stark. There was a new guy.
Comic booky.
Well, there's a new guy working. He's like, I gotta ask. This is not your real name, right? This is a pseudonym for your comic book shop. No, that's my real name. He just couldn't.
It's too cool.
He couldn't figure. He couldn't get over it. But that was.
We just interviewed someone for our other podcast who wrote an autobiography or a book about Stan Lee.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Oh, nice.
Right.
Abraham Reisman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She's awesome. So which comic book store are you talking
Carry
about?
On Comics. Yeah. Been going there since 91.
Amazing.
The new person's probably Andy's son.
Yeah. I was talking about Andy, I've known since 91. His son's now 32. I remember when he was born, so it's kind of wild. But
yeah.
It's a small town.
Yeah. So, and Andy's incredible friendly customer service skills that match Mark Logan's at Encore Records. Hi, welcome. Come on in. What can I help you with? You will never hear from Andy Brast.
You don't have to. When you're running a record store or a comic book store, you've got a built-in customer base. You don't have to dance
No.
for the customer.
Not
right?
at all. No.
For sure. That's an awesome comic book store.
Love it. It's
beautiful.
second home. I think I probably blame it and identify it as probably the source of a lot of my inspirations as a kid.
So it works.
That makes sense.
So I know that Carry On has these customers who they put their orders in.
Yeah, so you're pulled in.
That's how the business
Yeah,
actually
explain
works
this.
best, because that's how Andy knows what to order, right?
Yeah, and then the industry, that's how it generates its numbers. He'll go a little conservative on a certain title, but if you're requesting it, a lot more will come in.
Yeah, I only recently realized this looking at his Facebook that he kind of has to educate people that if you want the store to survive and comics come in, you have to order comics.
Yeah.
I cannot survive by people just walking in off the street and browsing, maybe buying a comic book.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
So does the pull bin intercept this? So like you pull the ones you want, but you don't take them home yet, and then he orders those?
Well,
or like, how does this work?
So you put down, I want these titles, or even just like any number one, any character, and then there's just literally a bin behind the desk with your name on it, and he'll toss them in there. And when you pop in, you grab them.
Oh, that's amazing.
And they're collectors.
It's like a
They're
secret
collectors
club.
who will pick up 40 comics.
Oh, yeah.
Are you one of those collectors, Mr. Stark?
I used to be. I definitely used to
Now
be.
I've got kids.
I've got kids, but my basement, I have thousands.
Really?
Boxes just full. And
Amazing.
yeah.
You ready for like a shelving unit for these bad boys?
I have some on display.
Yeah.
My Conan the Barbarians, my X-Men. Like,
Here's a quick quiz for you.
yeah.
Ooh, this is fun. Conan just winced for the listener to know.
1938 Action Comics, the first appearance of Superman, right?
Yeah.
A copy sold last year for how much do you think?
Was that like the 3 million one?
Yeah,
the Red
3 million.
Rocket?
Yeah.
The Red Rocket copy?
$1 million.
My second question would be, how many issues do comic book collectors believe still exist of that Action Comics #1?
Oh, it's really few. The exact number has got to be like 10, 20, 30, 40, or it's pretty small.
I
And
read maybe 100.
It's sub 100. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, beautiful comic. That red stamp one, the Red Rocket, was actually defaced with a red stamp, and that's why it's really famous. This
Yeah.
kid bought it, got it home, and put his red stamp on it. It's a little red rocket, and it's one of the most famous copies.
So it's a famous story. Some
Yeah.
kid put the stamp on it, and that makes it more special.
Yeah.
Geez, that's a little bit of a heartwarmer.
Speaking of stamps, the inverted Jenny stamp is the most valuable stamp out there in the world.
The hoo-ha?
Inverted,
What?
inverted
Wait, I said
Jenny.
hoo-ha.
It's an airplane. It's a stamp from a long
okay.
time
I was
ago.
picturing
And they
picturing a person.
printed it upside down one sheet by
Oh,
accident, and they're out there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Stamp people are, there's a wonderful name for stamp collectors. It
Yeah.
doesn't sound like stamps at all.
I don't remember.
I'm looking it up.
Okay.
I don't normally do this, but I just want to. Conan, do you know?
I do not.
Is there a name for comic book collectors?
Awesome people.
Awesome people. I love it. That's fantastic.
I brought in a box of comics years ago to Andy, and I said, I think I'm ready to sell this box of comics. And he looked through them all. And he was like,
There's no way I'm gonna say this word right.
Nothing here for me to buy from me. He said, but the one he pulled out that was of interest to him was Kool-Aid Man.
Oh,
And he goes, I've never seen this one.
that's a quirky one.
Yeah.
I need to hear this. There's no way I'm going to say this right. Philatelist.
Doesn't really roll off the tongue.
Not
No.
really. So it's like I'm not trying this word on my own.
No.
There's no way. I'm not brave enough for that. Just yet.
I'm a philatelist.
Pardon me.
A little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, we should talk about, well, we are talking about you. We're talking about comic books, and that's your love, and that's where Bond Park sometimes goes.
Yeah.
We don't always talk about the work. But before Marshall got here, we were chit-chatting about what you do, and I was asking what you did on the weekend. So you are a high school teacher at Cameron Heights.
Yeah, my high school teacher, Cameron Heights.
And I stupidly asked, what do you teach?
Art. Well, no, that's a fair question. Art pretty much factors into every equation with the things I choose to do in life, from comic books to being an art teacher at Cameron Heights, about 20 years there. I'm also an artist. I do a lot of art work in the community. I'm the vice chair of CAFKA, local art organization. And
An organization that Marshall has been miscredited for.
Oh, really?
It's in print somewhere
How
that he's
so?
a founder and he's not.
Mayor Carl Zara once wrote this letter of recommendation for me, saying I founded CAFKA, and I've never had anything to do with CAFKA. And anyway, this thing has like gone to and showing up in articles and stuff. It's kind of like,
It's a fantastic local lore story.
yeah.
take it and run.
Yeah. Why not? Sorry, so I interrupted you.
No, that's okay.
You're
No,
a
these are good
board
side
member,
stories.
chair member?
Vice chair of CAFKA,
Okay.
and just do a lot of work in the community.
I'm actually the founder.
Very nice to meet you. Thank you for building an organization for us.
Yeah.
What else do you do, Conan?
A lot, yeah. Just and then I'm a dad. I have two young girls, and spend a lot of time with them. That's probably my main focus, and everything kind of rotates or revolves around that world.
Same.
And try to bring everything I do in the art world, kind of try to share with them as well. So lots of fun stuff.
Yeah.
Cameron has a good reputation for its arts, and
it does. Yeah, it's a big school, one of the bigger public schools, about 1,800 students, which is exciting but challenging too. It's a busy place, very busy place.
Whenever we've done a tour, because I tried to get my kids to go to schools other than the one that's closest to our house, just because there's a lot that the city offers and they get programs. And whenever we've done a tour, the art department is always my fave because I love that art room smell, and there's always great artwork hanging.
The whole school has lots of great color in it too.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
it's a maze.
No, speaking of art rooms, art rooms are my favorite place. I don't think I've ever left an art room since I started school in grade school.
I think about how those students also get to take a walk downtown Kitchener usually to buy lunch and stuff, and
they pour down there.
It's an interesting location because they're just minutes from Encore Records and the market.
Yeah, they're definitely getting an experience. I went to Bluevale in high school, and we're sort of landlocked in suburbia. And
or my kids are right up here. Yeah, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, you're landlocked in suburbia. You don't get this sort of community experience,
right.
Which I think is a really good experience for them.
Yeah, they certainly see real life going on once they're on King Street and on side streets. Yeah.
Well, the market's a great place. Lots of community happening there.
Yep.
The landscape has changed, or the streetscape has changed a fair bit since we were kids. Cameron was a rougher school when we were kids, and it's changed with the implementation of the IB program and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the IB program. Yep.
I also think about how their food options aren't just pizza twice a deal. They go to market.
With a good slice of pizza.
Yeah, but they can get Jamaican patties at the market and all sorts of food, right?
Shawarma poutine was a big popular one for a while.
Yeah,
there's a couple places they'd love to pick that up.
So how long have you been at Cameron?
20 plus years. The exact number escapes me. I'm going to put it at a bench, a ballpark at a 20.
What have you seen in terms of changes over those 20 years? If you had to reflect on it.
Oh, I mean, it's funny, very little. I mean, there's the sort of the pop culture, the styles, the introduction of the cell phones. When I started teaching, there was no cell phones. But kids, by and large, are still the same. I still feel the same as I did when I was in school. They go through their Black Sabbath phase, and they introduce the music, and it's sort of superficial changes. I mean, and they mirror what happens in society. With the pandemic, everything changed, but I think kids fundamentally are the same as when we were kids. So it's more the cell phones and the technology, their awareness. The kids today are doing so much more than I was doing.
It's information overload. I don't know where they're storing it really.
Right, but
it's in their they've lost motor skills. They their head's never up. It's a different type of information that they're.
Yeah,
we were doing different intake, like Marsha was saying, walking downtown, finding your friends, doing all those sorts of things in person, drinking dirty rim beers or whatever that was that Marsha was talking about with his friend. Yeah. But they're intaking all of this digital information and all this other stuff on a different level, and they appear wiser at a younger age, which seems it's more like an access to information than it is a intelligence thing. But it's not to say they're not intelligent. I believe in the kids right now. I think they're doing way better than we were doing.
I think a lot of them stand for something. I don't remember standing for anything.
Yeah, I liked music and comic books. That was the peak of where I was at.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, I think they're the same. But there are a lot of difference, like you're saying. The access to technology is changing their focus, and they're overwhelmed too. I think there's a lot of. I don't feel or remember being that overwhelmed by so much information in high school. I think maybe it was a simpler time, but I guess I haven't left high school yet.
Yeah, I love that. I love that that's the way you look at it. I never left an art room. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I've never left the art room.
And when you say that, I get that smell of oil paint and linseed oil and clay, right? The art room smell, the paper smell.
Also, from what I can tell, artists are teaching art in high school now, not the gym teacher.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I had great art teachers when I was in school. That was very inspiring.
And you went to Lincoln Heights.
Lincoln Heights for grade school and Bluevale for high school.
Right.
And loved the art.
Art school, right?
Yeah, great art school. Now Cameron Heights. Yeah, so I haven't left any of the art rooms since the 80s.
I was a big Many Moods of Music goer.
Oh,
one of my friends got me
event.
into it. Emily Hurst, who we have to talk about the Hurst always on this podcast. That or my dead parents. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
Got me into it. And we would go every year to see that show. And with the performance, the halls were packed with the artwork. So it was an experience that we weren't getting at our little, Catholic grade school, St. Mark's in the middle of Forest Heights. With landlarked. I like it.
Yeah.
It's like a stuck bird.
Yeah.
Landlocked in the middle of Forest Heights.
I think I prefer that actually.
I know, right? We weren't getting that experience, right? So to walk through the halls of Bluevale on our way to the performance, and then to see these kids, you know, who seemed like adults to us performing, it was a game changer for me, for sure.
Yeah, I never performed in many moods, but all my friends did. I was always the
Did you paint the set?
I would get art in the halls. I was always the behind the scenes kind of guy.
Yeah. I like being behind the scenes.
Yeah,
too.
totally behind the scenes. Getting on stage, I probably could have done it, but it was never really my thing.
Yeah.
People were out. There's so many other talented people that just get up in there and sing. So
I did a bit of that in high school, but it's a lot. It's like showing your underwear. It's like the nightmare of showing up to school naked, like getting up in front of the whole school and being like, "Here's my singing voice. Want to hear it?" It's a lot. It's quite a feat, actually.
It's funny Sarah uses the expression showing my underwear, because I was just thinking of that expression this morning. And because I was reading somebody saying how I actually find it much easier to show my skin and show my body than to show people myself, like me.
Marshall, what you had a morning.
Yeah.
No wonder you were late.
I thought that's
how did you arrive at that?
Yeah.
Looking at some Instagram, and I really do enjoy seeing influencers who put themselves out there as far as body image go, positive body image.
And this looking at social media is a new thing for you.
It is, right? And I just love the conversation that's happening. It's often like, wow, this is so great. I feel so much better knowing there's people out there like you know, who are body positive. I never would have thought to wear a bikini on the beach before, right, kind of thing.
Right.
Or
I say wear those bikinis, ladies and gents and everyone in between.
But I really like the part where people chime in and say, I'm actually totally okay with showing my body however it is in my skin or my underwear. But what terrifies me is showing myself, like who I am, and people seeing, you know. And I feel like that's what Sarah and I have been doing for years now with Bon Park Podcast. We're really...
sticking a chisel in the middle of your chest and I'm cranking you.
Yeah. Really.
But you're doing the same to me.
Yeah. Just, and then we have these amazing conversations. We have another podcast called An Unscripted Spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling.
That's the wrestling one. Yeah. Very cool.
So much fun.
And some of the wrestlers will really open up, you know,
and
we end up talking about
things
on a much deeper, meaningful level than you'll find on most wrestling podcasts.
You really get into it. I know. I think it's an interesting aspect of social media. I think I historically wasn't really much of a social media user, but I mean, art has sort of pulled me into that realm. Like, I think you kind of have to. It's part of your promotion. It's part of your social identity. But that other aspect, it is a way of sort of slowly but surely start to share parts of yourself with a community, like whether they are watching or not. I guess you just kind of throw it out there and see. But
I always wonder what some of the businesses you make art. I think about there's a piece you've done for Ethel's. Wordsworth Books and Carry On Comics. I always wonder what it's like to be an entrepreneur and an owner, proprietor of these businesses, and to see somebody's work of art and about your place. It just must be so moving.
I think so. I mean, Carry On, they actually put that piece up in their shop.
That's awesome. Feels good, right?
Yeah, and it's just purely out of like enjoyment. I love those are places I love, and I approach my art. It's really about passion, the thing I support, the things I really believe in. Wordsworth, my favorite bookstore. Ethel's.
Us too.
Love going to Ethel's. Carry On. It's funny, they're all along that Kitchener stretch, but I think I did another one of the Dairy Queen that was a little further down. That is now like a burger place.
Priest,
yeah, Burger Priest. Andy quite proudly put it up in his sort of stoic little way. Well, thanks.
I was not a regular at Sonny's Drive-In. Maybe once a year kind of thing, twice a year maybe. But I felt profound sadness when Sonny's closed.
I remember that too. We would
End of an era stuff, right?
Well, I'd walk down there because I went to Lincoln Heights. It was a ways away. We would walk down from up on Lincoln Avenue. We go straight down to University and head there and on some lunch hours.
Yeah.
When I remember those days vividly. Now it's gone.
Yeah.
There's sort of strange sadness. This sort of attachment to businesses and places. You're just pulling at that book, eh?
Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Sonny's. Yeah. So these places. So I like to draw the places that I have a connection with. Like you're saying, you're sort of sharing those parts of yourself, drawing those places that you have a connection to. I hope they respond and see them, but you never know.
I was watching last night the Twilight Zone, the movie made in the 1980s, right?
I remember that one.
And
we're big Twilight Zone fans.
And they do this this kind of updated revision of Kick the Can, right? Which is about Home for the Aged. And these old folks rediscovering their youth through a game called Kick the Can and some magic. And what was really beautiful was at the end, they realized that they actually want to go back to their old bodies. And some of them have some really poignant things they share. It's a woman with a cat who becomes 8 years old with a young cat kind of thing. She was too young to see Halley's Comet, but Halley's Comet was coming up in 2 years. And the person, Scatman Crothers is the magical person, says, do you want to be 8 and see Halley's Comet, or do you want to see it at 80? And she decides, I want to be 80. So the kids all go back into the house and become old again. And anyways, I mention that because I think about how, with something like Sunny's being gone, a business that's been around for decades, it makes you think about all the things we've lost along the way up to Sunny's. It's not just Sunny's, it's everything else, right?
Yeah, it's symptomatic, or it sort of symbolizes a lot of the other places.
Yeah.
All on King Street, the shops disappearing. And that's why I started going back to Carrion quite a bit more after the pandemic. I've always gone, but a place like Carrion Comics grew up there, went there always. But you go in, it hasn't changed. I love that.
Yeah.
Andy hasn't changed a thing.
That's I hold, Sarah knows this, I hold that so important.
Yeah.
Can I please have some things in my town that just don't change, right?
Actually, I think it's all the things though.
Yeah.
But everything has changed. I'm trying to think of what else hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And
No, but I mean, I don't care if Walmart changes. I don't care if like some of these places, like, go ahead and keep moving forward and keep doing your thing. But some of them are just like, please just stay there.
yeah, some things. Like we were driving with my kids in the country past the old drive-in theater. And I was like, it's just like it's houses after houses now. They're like, what is a drive-in?
What is that?
What is a drive-in
Yeah.
theater?
Take them to the Mustang this summer. It's so fun.
And we were talking about that. And
Yeah.
then just remembering seeing the first Batman there, Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Like, so these things, and kind of thinking back and missing those things. Is it nostalgia, or is it something? I think it's something bigger than nostalgia.
I think you're right.
It's like nostalgia has sort of a negative tone sometimes. Oh, just stop living in the past. But I think thinking about the past isn't a bad thing. There's some great lessons and reflections you can have on these places. So Carry On really symbolizes that for me.
That I was just recently telling a friend, they were asking me, what was your first movie? Like what was your first movie in the theater? What'd you go see? And I started thinking, I couldn't grasp it. And I started to remember, my parents owned this store on Highland Road. And beside them, their neighbors were Entertainment Tonight, and they would rent the VHS with the chunk top, the top loader, and the movies, right? And I remember the movies we would rent. I remember Star Wars and The Last Unicorn and The Last Unicorn. I know. Let's take a moment of silence for The Last Unicorn. And movies that we should not. My sister made me watch that were so terrifying. It's to this day why I don't like scary movies.
Yeah.
April
April Fool's Day.
Happy birthday to me. April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
Dolls. I just choked on my own saliva thinking about dolls. But I couldn't remember my first theater movie because my parents were big drive-in people. And then I started to have this nostalgia for, we had this big van. It was like the gray sparkly metallic with the teardrop windows in the back. And we would be under blankets in the back so they wouldn't have to pay for us. And when we get in, I don't know who they were fooling, how people get in there and there's 8 children piling out of the back of this van, us and our neighborhood friends.
I think it was an accepted practice.
I think it was an accepted practice. Well, there's only 3 kids back there, but there's 8. And that's why it was drive-in time. And I don't remember any of the movies, but I remember running around with friends, getting mosquito bites, eating popcorn, getting tired. I remember those things,
Oh, I definitely remember seeing Batman.
Yeah.
Tim Burton's Batman at the drive-in. Yeah.
My sister Kathy took me to movies that were kind of too old for my age, but I really appreciate it now. It's like I saw.
She also took you to see Johnny Cash.
Yep, saw Johnny Cash when I was 10. I saw Gandhi when I was really young in the theater. Had an intermission. I saw Coal Miner's Daughter. I saw Kramer versus Kramer. When it comes to scary movies, I find that sometimes something that really I was hammered home to me the other night that how a scene is scary when you're just telling somebody about it, and So I'm on the phone with my friend Colin, and I said, I'm watching this movie from the 50s. It's got this scene that terrified my oldest kid when they saw it for the first time. And what it is so picture black and white. It's a man in a room his fiance doesn't know what to buy him because he's got everything he could need. He's very kind of suave and debonair.
Yeah.
Debonair.
Yeah, and she finds this very old antique mirror for him, and he puts it up.
Oh, I know what you're talking
in his bedroom,
about.
right?
I just got a little chill.
Yeah, and every time he looks in the mirror, he's by himself. He can see his bedroom behind him, right?
Right.
But then it changes into another room with like a fireplace, and it's a completely different room. And every time he looks in the mirror from this point on, it's a different room. It's the same different room. It's another room from this mirror's past. And I was telling my friend Colin about it. And he's long pause and he says, I've got goosebumps. Just you tell me about it kind of thing.
I will tell you, I will not, like you know me, my house is full of ground scores and thrifted things and nothing too fancy.
Yeah.
And I will not buy an antique mirror or an old mirror because I look in it and I think, who else was looking in this thing? It's too close.
This movie's called Dead of Night. And
I'll look that up. There's some pretty strong visuals there.
There's some there's many stories within this one story, and that's one of the stories. And anyways, we find out through the movie that, with some research, that this mirror belonged to somebody and a terrible thing happened.
That's why I won't do it. Yeah. I can feel it when I look in these mirrors. My imagination runs wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. I'm surprised you haven't brought it up before because you do have a little ounce of clairvoyance.
Right. I don't like mirrors. I don't like mirrors in general. Just
no.
Well, what have they seen, right? Like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wild.
What have the mirrors in hotels seen?
Oh God.
Too many things.
Let's not go there, just in case any students are listening. Maybe.
I'm always interested when I know artists, filmmakers, musicians who are high school teachers, because I often ask, have your students seen your work? Right.
That's a good question.
In the case of Jeff Chard at Laurel Heights, who's the head of history.
Right.
Very few of them have heard his music. He's been in bands for like 30 years kind of thing. Usually doesn't share it with them, maybe years later after they're no longer students. But in your case, do your students look up, Conan Stark and find all that incredible artwork?
I think so. Now, before the pandemic, I did not share work with my class. I don't even really know why I didn't share it. It was just sort
personal life. And
you kept it separate, and I didn't. But pandemic... big shift. I started really, there was an intentionality in trying to focus on my own art a little bit, just for sanity, for self-support. And that quickly became sort of sharing it online. That's when I really started sharing more of my work online. And then once we resumed classes, I started actually talking about it a lot with my classes, kind of as a cathartic kind of, how are we getting through the pandemic? For me, it was art, and just kind of shared more of my art with the classes. And we had that conversation, not just about making art, about what art can be for an individual, for a community, the catharsis you can find in that. And it became a larger conversation about the role of art versus just making art. And that was a big shift. Yeah, so I do share it. But that kind of pandemic, I think, is when and why I started sharing it. I never thought about it intentionally before that. I just sort of made art, I taught art, loved making art. But that was a big shift.
Does it feel good to have it out there? Like, does it feel, or does it sometimes you feel protective?
Well, kind of back to that point about, it's a bit scary.
Yes. Underwear,
right? Because you're still in school. Like, even the teachers in school sometimes have that sort of awkward sort of shyness at school.
Yeah.
Even the teacher. You're in charge of the class. You're meant to be a little more with it. But sharing art is always sort of nerve-wracking a little bit to a degree. And some people really respond. Some people just blink and move on. But I think it's an important conversation. I think they talk to me my art a lot more now. And they ask a lot more questions. And they see that art can be something you do in the community. So it's been a good conversation.
And how do you explain the mediums you're working in? Like, what all are you using?
I know. I've got this written down as notes. So I want to talk to you about this.
So I've had lots of art mentors over the years, and their best advice is you should focus. You should try to focus. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that.
I've had the same advice, and I don't.
I can't do it.
I can focus on tasks as long as I've got 8 other ones spinning like plates on my fingertips at the same time.
So in terms of mediums, fundamentally, I probably started as pencil and paper.
Yeah.
And that became paint, mixed medias, inks, which became photography, which became printmaking, which became mixed media, which became digital art.
Digital art, yeah. And
it all kind of mixed. So I've been thinking about that. I've had even recently mentors go, focus up. And I'm like, well, I can't. And I think about that. I'm like, part of my job, in a given day, I teach 100 students, 100 different mediums, about 100 different stories. So I think that's probably reinforced sort of a part of me. They can't focus, and it's not a bad thing. I quite enjoy that there's so many different mediums that I explore. Because with my students, I'm all over the map on a given day. And personally, there's just so many things you want to. I'm not done exploring. I don't think I ever will be. So I think the stories and the narratives are all connected, but the mediums change up so vastly.
I pulled out this book when you were talking earlier because I was like, oh yeah, remember these? I did this to one other guest. I can't remember who at the moment. Maybe Brian Douglas.
Yeah.
Brian Douglas.
Oh yeah, the photographer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember these Talent Next Door books? They ran for 2 or 3 seasons, and I wish that Craig Musselman made them, and I wish that they continued because I was so honored to be a part of it. This was at a time when I was like, I guess I'll give you my photo. I'm not really an artist, but I'll give you some photos.
Let's do it. Yeah.
So yeah, we're both in this book at the same time, which is great. I love this. You've got 2 beautiful photographs. But last time I saw you was at 44 Gawker. And what was that event? It was Arts Pay.
Oh yeah, there was an Arts Pay
Arts
sort
Pay,
of
yeah.
a sale, and for that particular show,
It was like a show. Yeah, everyone brought their game. Yeah.
Everyone brought in a bunch of work, and I had a bunch of my camera illustrations from a series. To all the cameras we loved. It was a series where I was interviewing photographers who had a deep passion for photography. I was taking their portrait and then kind of talking to them about a particular camera, be it their first camera or a camera they had in their life that had meaning for them. And then I was illustrating that camera. So it was a interview, photography, illustration, sort of mixed media project. And
you had a bunch of the old cameras there for
I
people
had,
to look at,
I
which
had a
I
bunch of my
loved.
old cameras as well.
I've
Yeah,
got
I
tons
noticed
of
you've got a lot of nice cameras behind you.
a lot of cameras, yeah.
A lot of the brownies. So a project like that kind of was exciting because I got to kind of mix all the different sort of mediums I like. Storytelling, illustration, drawing, photography all together.
Can we geek out on that process? I
Sure,
love talking
yeah.
process. So you were talking pencil to paper, paint to paper, photography, digital art. But what are you doing when, because I'm assuming with some of this work, you're taking a photo and you're bringing it into a digital form. Well, it's a digital photo probably. And then what are you doing? Procreate, Illustrator? What do you, Fresco?
I always start with pencil and paper, do some sketches. I'll photograph the cameras, and the 2 main programs I use, Procreate, Clip Studio Pro, which is a really popular program with like illustrators, like comic book artists, and Photoshop. Clip Studio Pro. But I always start with a pencil sketch. So do your pencil sketch, throw that into the program Procreate, and then build up on top of that.
Procreate is fun.
Procreate's so much fun.
Yeah. A lot of artists that we've talked to on the show, when they're doing a mixed media of photographs, photographs or like meat space materials, are big fans of Procreate. And I like it too because it's like it feels like paper. It feels like texture.
Yeah,
it feels like paint.
I've used so many digital art programs over the years and never really connected. They felt there was a gap between how I used to draw in the program. I couldn't connect. But Procreate's very fluid, very organic, like you are drawing on paper.
I think Marshall would really like it. I think you'd respond to it well.
Yeah.
That's our next step. We'll get you an iPad.
Okay.
After a new computer.
Yeah.
But that said, I found myself going back to really traditional mediums of late, like ink, paper, paint, watercolor. Maybe it's that nostalgia thinking back to traditional methods. Love digital art. But my first love was just ink and pencil and paper, much like the comic books artist would start. Like that's how I practiced as a kid, just copying characters from comic books and trying to emulate their style and get inside their style.
Well, a lot of that work, does have, was that what you're going to say? Does have a comic book feel?
It does. I was going to point out the piece you did on the Polaroid camera.
Yeah.
It's so good.
The Polaroid camera is such a neat thing. It's first of all, I always thought there was something kind of aggressive about it, pointing at somebody and suddenly the thing comes out. And then the waving of the photo, right, to bring it in.
We're actually not supposed to.
I know you're not supposed to shake it like
you're
a Polaroid picture.
That's an urban myth. The song reinforces.
Oh.
It's a chemical process that the air just doesn't. But
leave it alone.
But there is something very satisfying.
If you think about the photo booth at the mall, they just kind of
shot out,
shoot out. But the Polaroid camera, when I look at your piece, it made me think about how I'm just as in awe of the Polaroid camera as I am of like a rocket going into space. Like it just seems like, how did humans figure that out? You know,
it's all made from plants and dirt.
Yeah,
minerals.
Yeah, just the whole idea of capturing an image.
It's
it just doesn't seem like, I don't know, hundreds of years ago people could have conceived that idea that, yep, this is what we're going to be able to do. You know.
But they did, and it's magic. Going back to, I guess, the earliest science of the camera, like camera obscura, that pinhole camera, and
also a good band.
The science behind it. Yeah, it is magic. And photography, my interest in photography came a little bit later. As a kid, I couldn't afford cameras, but I had an old Brownie kicking around the house. That was probably my great aunt's camera, and it just felt like magic. And drawing felt something more accessible. Photography was always someone in a different world. the science fiction thing.
And mine was opposite. I was always trying to do like handmade art, drawing, painting, sculpting, playing with clay, all of these different types of mediums. And then when I got into the darkroom with my own roll of film, I was like, oh, this makes sense.
Right.
That's when it clicked for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the darkroom. That's how I learned that, again, back to Blue Vale High School.
Yeah.
Great darkroom there. But again, photography is sort of, if I had to rank them, art, the traditional art is always first. Photography, strong, second, I guess they complement each other, but yeah, it always goes back to comic books, unfortunately, or fortunately, very fortunately.
When you teach teenagers, I think teenagers have what kids have, which is, and I know it's from looking at Sarah's kids' artwork and my kids' artwork, is they have an inherent understanding of a good composition usually and filling up the page.
Yeah.
Whereas
absolutely.
if you bring a 40 or 50-year-old into a life drawing class, that's gone sometimes. It's just that they're drawing way too small. There's no sense of composition. But I guess as long as kids keep drawing into their teens and making art into their teens, they haven't had the chance to lose whatever it is that gets lost when we stop playing, when we stop. That's the whole message of the Kick the Can Twilight Zone episode is don't stop playing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can carry that through with you. And I think drawing is so good for you. It helps focus the mind. And that experimentation is a skill you want through life. Kids love art, but it is still considered something like a side subject. It's not considered a main subject.
Of course it's treated that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Unfortunately. I have a lot of conversations with parents trying to encourage them to continue in the arts. Whether you become an artist or not, I want my doctors, my lawyers, everybody to have that part of your brain, that freedom to play, that creativity, that insight. Like everybody should have that. Like it's sort of so important. Probably the main reason I haven't left an art room, because I'm afraid of a world without that. Like it's a scary place to conceive of. So. The kids are amazing. The art they do is like, they work so hard. I will say the one place they struggle is scaling up to really big works. They draw on their sketchbooks, kind of like their worlds. The world is a small book or their Procreate canvas. But when you ask them to work on a really big piece, that's where you see a bit of a hiccup. They can't conceive of that scaling up.
You must have these. It must be incredible with high school students. There's a piece that Sarah's oldest daughter did recently that I'm pretty sure the assignment has talked about positive and negative space.
Is it?
It's face and hands,
oh,
right?
Yeah.
It's a very intense, dramatic piece. And although I haven't had the chance to ask her about it, I'm pretty sure part of the assignment was we're going to really look at positive and negative space and the power of simple line contrasted with shading values, right? But when you see those first assignments come in, where this is the first time these kids have done this, one is they must be so incredibly proud, like you've just shown them a huge magic trick. Mm-hmm. And two, it just must be so rewarding for you to say, they totally get it.
It's mind-blowing. Like, and they take these ideas and they run with them and they make them your own. So you start with an idea, you give a lesson, you never really factor in how they're going to internalize it and come back with something far bigger than you ever kind of even presented to them. But yeah, it's so rewarding. Like, and done my job.
Yeah. Or even like for some of them, it might be the first time they've looked at surrealism, kind of thing.
That is a big fight. The modern art, most students will come in naturally saying they don't like modern art or abstract art. And by the end of, most of these students I'll teach multiple times over the 4 years they're in high school. By grade 12, they're like, okay, I get it. Yeah. Art in all forms is important and it's a bigger conversation.
You don't have some who see like a Mark Rothko, like some color field painters or something, or Guido Molinari, and be like, see vibrations and colors and go, oh wow,
they'd be the exception, not the norm.
Okay,
they'd be the exception.
Usually I could do that. That's usually the
absolutely.
Yeah.
How is that art? They're very fixated on realism, and I guess these are more societal standards of what art is. It's technical. It's about drawing somebody to look like somebody, and anything outside of that is maybe you're not hitting the mark. But I think art is far more than just drawing somebody to look like somebody.
Agreed.
And do they question that being an art teacher is subjective, and that how do you grade my work?
All the time. But that's more from a point of view where like, what mark am I going to get in your class? I'm like, well, just enjoy the class, please. Like I try not to talk about marks as much.
Put forth the effort.
Yeah, it's a process, not a conclusion. That's another thing.
Always.
Yeah, it's about all about the process. I actually tell them the mark at the end of the class, albeit important, is not the goal here. Actually, the art you make is not the goal. Actually, the art you make is irrelevant. You could print in this, it gets them kind of going, but you could throw out the art at the end of the class. What I want you to take away is the process. Enjoy the art room. Really settle into that process. Mostly they get there, but telling them to throw out the art sometimes doesn't sit well.
A local artist friend of mine just recently passed away. He was 92. And what I loved, he always came to my art classes when I was teaching, and he just did his own thing. And he painted his vacation photos, like over old canvases with vacation paintings, like wherever it was he traveled. So he didn't spend a lot on canvases because he would just prime them and paint over them.
Yeah, upcycle and recycle.
And I love that idea. He didn't even photograph them sometimes. So there's no record of them. He's just spending hours painting and enjoying and living with it. And then when it's time to paint over it, he paints another painting over top.
Yeah, truly subscribes to that idea. The process and is more important than sort of the final product, which freaks people out, like really does. But I think if you can kind of get into that mindset, you're going to do really well in life.
As the founding member of CAFKA, which I am not, close to 25 years now, the CAFKA's been.
20, yeah, about there.
Yeah, can we talk about CAFKA and what your involvement has been?
CAFKA, so I'm relatively new to CAFKA. I've always been aware of CAFKA growing up in this community. I've been on the board for 3 years now, education chair, vice chair. And CAFKA is this, unfortunately, it's this wonderfully kept secret. It's everywhere. But if you ask people if they know what CAFKA is, a lot of people might not know exactly what that is. They think about the writer Kafka, no. But Contemporary Art Forum, Kitchener area, does such wonderful things. I love how our mandate is to take art out of galleries and put it sort of in a very accessible manner in weird, unexpected places. No diss to galleries. I love galleries. But I love that you can be walking through Victoria Park and see this random sculpture that just grabs your attention, starts making you ask questions. Our big art show is every other year. It's a biennial, and it kicks off June 3rd. And lots of exciting things there. And I think it's important to share and bring art into the community and show that the results of artists hardworking. But I think you need to remind communities art is important to make art accessible, ask questions, show people some really weird stuff that may have kind of go back to that. Is that art? Absolutely it is. Because if you're asking that question, is it art? We gotcha.
Yep.
It is art.
If we've evoked an emotion,
we've gotcha.
We did the job.
Yeah.
Also, where the space it's located in sometimes is accessible to people who may not feel comfortable walking into an art gallery. Some people just don't, are going to an art show. It's especially when it's downtown Kitchener. Yeah,
no, accessibility. So that's, we do intentionally place them on thoroughfares, on streets, and publicly accessed place. Last show we had a lot installed on billboards by LRT, just walking around, just unexpected. Like, you don't need to seek them out; you'll find them by accident.
Bond Park is made possible with the support of the Waterloo Region Community Foundation, the Kitchener Public Library, our local sponsors, and you, our loyal listeners.
We make this show in Sarah's kitchen. If you like it, please rate and subscribe.
That helps us get the word out to more listeners.
The Bond Park theme song is by Alan Lung. Sarah and I are super excited for season 4 and all the amazing shows we're going to bring you.
We're also really excited about our secret side podcast called An Unscripted Spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. And it's not actually about wrestling.
No, it isn't. It's about a lot of things.
Mostly life.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of laughter.
Yeah, there's tons and tons of laughter.
We're incredibly proud of it. So please check it out on all your streaming platforms. An unscripted, I can't say it. Can you say it?
An Unscripted Spectacle, Wrestling with Wrestling. Meow, 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 meow.